We're living in an authoritarian state. It didn't feel that way this morning when I took my dog for his usual walk in the park and dew from the grass glittered on my boots in the rising sunlight. The persistent normality of daily life is disorienting, even paralyzing, yet it's true. We have in our heads specific images of authoritarianism that come from the 20th century. Uniformed men goose-stepping in jackboots, masses of people chanting party slogans, streets lined with giant portraits of the leader, secret opposition meetings in basements, interrogations under naked light bulbs, executions by firing squad. These were hallmarks of the Nazi regime that Thomas Mann denounced in speeches and radio addresses from his American exile. Mann warned American audiences that fascism was a mortal threat the democracies would have to resist. We can almost envy him the clarity of his task, for today's threat is harder to see. It's coming from inside our own house. It's something we Americans are doing to ourselves. Authoritarianism in the 21st century is different from the fascist and communist versions. Political scientists have tried to find a new term for it: illiberal democracy, competitive authoritarianism, right-wing populism. In countries such as Hungary, Turkey, Venezuela, and India, democracies aren't overthrown, nor do they collapse all at once. Instead, they erode. Opposition parties, the judiciary, the press, and civil society groups aren't destroyed, but over time they lose their life, staggering on like zombie institutions, giving the impression that democracy is still alive. This blurred line is an important feature of modern authoritarianism. How do we know when we've crossed it? These sorts of regimes have constitutions, but the teeth are missing. Elections take place, but they're no longer truly fair or free. The party in power controls the electoral machinery, and if the results aren't desirable, they'll be challenged and likely overturned. To keep their jobs, civil servants have to prove not their competence, but their personal loyalty to the leader. Independent government officers, prosecutors, inspectors general, federal commissioners, central bankers are fired and their positions handed to flunkies. The legislature, in the hands of the ruling party, becomes a rubber stamp for the executive. Courts still hear cases, but judges are appointed for their political views, not their expertise, and their opinions, cloaked in neutral-sounding legal terms, predictably give the leader what he wants, endorsing his most illiberal policies and immunizing him from accountability. The rule of law amounts to favors for friends and persecution for enemies. The separation of powers turns out to be a paper-thin gentleman's agreement. There are no meaningful checks on the leader's power. No ideology, no almighty ism drives these regimes. Today's authoritarians don't move people to heroic feats on behalf of the fatherland. The leader and his cronies use their positions to hold on to power and enrich themselves. Corruption becomes so routine that it's expected. The public grows desensitized, and violations of ethical norms that would have caused outrage in any other time go barely noticed. The regime has no utopian visions of a classless or hierarchical society in a purified state. It doesn't thrive on war. In fact, it asks very little of the people. At important political moments, it mobilizes its core supporters with frenzies of hatred. But its overriding goal is to render most citizens passive. If the leader's speech gets boring, you can even leave early. No one left Nuremberg early. 21st century authoritarianism keeps the public content with abundant calories and dazzling entertainment. Its dominant emotions aren't euphoria and rage, but indifference and cynicism. Because most citizens still expect to have certain rights respected, blatant totalitarian mechanisms of repression are avoided. The most effective tools of control are distraction, confusion, and division. These regimes thrive on polarizing the electorate into us and them. Us is defined as the real people, often working class, rural, less educated, who see themselves as the traditional backbone of the country and the victims of rapid economic and social change, globalization, immigration, technology, new ideas about race and gender identity. Them are the elites who benefit from these changes, who have no loyalty to the country and its traditions, along with the aliens and minorities whom the elites use to undermine the national way of life. The leader speaks directly for the people and embodies their will against the people's enemies. As defender of the nation, he claims the right to override any obstacles, legal or otherwise. Whatever he does is the rule of law. Over time, society is hollowed out. Civic organizations that engage in public affairs hesitate to get too political for fear of drawing unwanted attention. Universities, churches, NGOs, and law firms mute themselves to stay in the good graces of the state, which has tremendous financial and regulatory power over them. The press isn't silenced, but it is intimidated by demagogic rhetoric, investigations, and lawsuits, so that journalists are constantly asking themselves what the negative consequences of a particular story or opinion will be. Over time, the major media fall under the control of the leader's friends, leaving a few independent outlets to struggle on in pursuit of the truth. Authoritarian regimes and their allies flood the internet and social media with such a tide of falsehoods, so much distrust in traditional sources of information, that the public throws up its hands and checks out. While partisans on both sides use incendiary language in the endless battle for algorithmic attention, normal people who aren't particularly engaged or informed grow numb and exhausted. And this social context allows authoritarians to exert control without resorting to terror. If everybody always lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but rather that nobody believes anything any longer, the political philosopher Hannah Arendt said near the end of her life. And a people that no longer can believe in anything cannot make up its mind. It is deprived not only of its capacity to act, but also of its capacity to think and to judge. And with such a people, you can then do what you please. These are the features of the modern authoritarian state. Every one of them exists today in this country. Even as President Trump's popularity falls, checks on his power have grown so weak that he can do almost anything he wants. He sends masked police to pick people off the streets without probable cause for arrest, disappear them into secret prisons, and ship them off to random countries. He fires experienced, patriotic civil servants and replaces them with unqualified toadies. He takes open bribes from foreign countries and American businesses in the form of a luxury jet or a meme coin. He tells media companies to stop criticizing him or else, and many of them do. It sometimes seems as if the only obstacle is his own attention span. The philosopher John Dewey believed that democracy is not just a system of government, but a way of life, one that allows for the fullest realization of every human being's potential. I was granted more than half a century to benefit from it in the country that practically invented democracy. It makes me heartsick that my children might not have the same chance. What can we do to prevent authoritarianism from becoming our way of life? The dangerous temptation is to withdraw in some private world of our own and wait it out. The last and greatest check on corrupt power is public opinion, but it begins in the mind and heart of every individual, in the ability to see clearly where we are, the refusal to accept it, and the will to act.